Speaker of the House, Kevin McCarthy, has formally announced that he will be launching or directing a House committee to launch an impeachment inquiry into President Joe Biden. Now, I know what you're thinking, but Luke, I thought you said they haven't been able to uncover the impeachable offenses when it comes to these bribery accusations against Joe Biden. Some pretty big allegations they make, unable to substantiate them. Still the case, but Kevin McCarthy is proceeding anyways. And again, to specify further as to what they're saying the justification is we are going to be able to prove that Joe Biden was bribed and was changing his policies as vice president to benefit his son's business dealings overseas, being, of course, Hunter Biden. All these different things I've gone through so extensively as they've been trotted out. The specifics of them, walked through the different hearings that went on from the GOP and why they are incapable of proving these things. And so then you're left wondering, why is he doing this then? It's just a political stunt, clearly. Why is he making this happen? And we'll get to that after looking at a few different things. If you don't believe me, if you don't believe that they haven't been able to uncover evidence that would justify impeaching Joe Biden, evidence of Joe Biden's wrongdoing and impeachable offenses on the part of Joe Biden, then I'll show you later in this segment a Republican congressman saying the exact same thing. Before that, here's the big announcement from Kevin McCarthy.
That's why today I am directing our House committee to open a formal impeachment inquiry into President Joe Biden.
So serious, so solemn. So if they don't have the evidence to justify this, they're saying the inquiries where we'll get the evidence that would justify impeaching him, even though some within the party are saying, no, we've already proved Joe Biden's a criminal. Not the case, obviously. But even the idea that the inquiries where you find the impeachable offense, but wouldn't you have investigatory powers in Congress. You're supposed to find the evidence that's damning and then proceed with anything in the impeachment world, not just use the inquiry as a chance to see, can we find something impeachment worthy? Very strange. So then why is Kevin McCarthy doing this? It could backfire on moderate Republicans in moderate districts because it seems like such a political attack on President Biden. It's because of the hardcore MAGA part of his party. It's because he has to keep Marjorie Greene happy, Lauren Boebert happy. And we'll get to later in today's show, Matt Gaetz is starting a mutiny against Kevin McCarthy because he always wants Kevin McCarthy to go even further to the right. But as an example of the pressure McCarthy has been getting, here's Marjorie Greene.
We're just asking members of Congress, do you think we should inquire about impeachment? It's not saying, do you want to impeach? It's saying, should we just ask the question? And at this point right now, I'm like, what the hell is wrong with Republicans?
Now, of course, Marjorie Taylor Greene filed articles of impeachment the first full day of Biden's presidency, how he possibly could have committed impeachable offenses as president of the United States when he had just become president of the United States by that point in time. I have no idea. But now she's saying this time is for real, though. Lauren Boebert said on Twitter, let's get this impeachment going. And like I said, we've gone over a bunch of similar statements from Matt Gaetz and others within the hardcore MAGA part of the Republican Party. So Kevin McCarthy's only goal is not to keep the Republican Party respected in any sense or to be moral or to have principles. It's just to keep his position of power. That's it. And so to do that, he has to keep the MAGA part of his party happy, and thus he's throwing this red meat to them and is following the lead of Marjorie Greene and others and doing something that just makes absolutely no sense for so many different reasons that we've been covering each day. Now, again, as I said, if you're thinking, gosh, this lib doesn't understand, the evidence is there, well, then I'll show you Republicans who are voicing the very same concern that I am. Before doing that, here's a little bit of reporting. McCarthy gambles on Biden impeachment probe as shutdown looms. House Speaker Kevin McCarthy used a 4-minute Tuesday statement to plunge the House GOP toward impeachment inquiry into President Joe Biden, but he won't know until Wednesday if he's won over his toughest audience, his own members. And the article points out that Kevin McCarthy shifted, went from saying that he's going to get a vote and see if he can get a majority of the House to vote on even launching an impeachment inquiry. And now he's saying, no, I'm just going to go ahead and have a committee launch that process. Of course, the actual impeachment would necessitate a majority vote, but he shifted off of getting people on the record right now, because he knows members within his own party, the moderate Republicans, are not understanding why this is happening. As the article notes, Don Bacon, who represents a district that Joe Biden won in 2020, so a more moderate district, said he doesn't currently support an impeachment inquiry. And we also have been talking about Ken Buck, who's been saying this.
Connecting the president. So I am more focused on the issues that I think Americans care deeply about.
Well, perhaps Congressman Marjorie Taylor Greene, who you have been pretty vocal in pushing back on, is getting your message, because yesterday she posted, quote, this, quote, "Our country deserves for Congress to vote for an impeachment inquiry for very important reasons, not a rush impeachment vote." That is a bit of a shift in the timeline, a little bit of a pumping of the brakes on it. What did you make of that?
Well, Marjorie filed impeachment articles of impeachment on President Biden before he was sworn into office more than 2.5 years ago. So the idea that she is now the expert on impeachment, or that she is someone who should set the timing on impeachment, is absurd. The time for impeachment is the time when there's evidence linking President Biden, if there's evidence linking President Biden to a high crime or misdemeanor. That doesn't exist right now, and it isn't really something that we can say, well, in February we're going to do this. It's based on the facts. You go where the facts take you.
And there has been a search for that for some time, I think it's worth stating. But you also have been asked.
Exactly. They've been investigating Biden right, left, forward, backwards, every which way you could possibly imagine for months, if not years, with this House Oversight Committee investigation, and trying to prove these allegations that they're bringing against President Biden. And a Republican congressman who's so conservative, Ken Buck, is willing to say, we don't have the evidence of the necessary link to prove Joe Biden's wrongdoing in the scheme that's being alleged between Joe Biden and Hunter Biden's business dealings. And as he says, or as he alluded to, and we may not ever find that. And so until we do, or if we never do, we should not be launching an impeachment inquiry and should focus on other things. And I will say, is it possible that eventually a high crime or misdemeanor could be found, evidence of one on the part of Joe Biden? Of course it's possible, always possible. If that ever were to happen, does not justify lying about what they have right now. Does that make sense? And I also will say, if I had to put money on it, they won't be able to find a high crime or misdemeanor on the part of Joe Biden. Because if it was there, watching their investigation leads me to believe they would have found it by now. And especially watching the different lines that have been drawn that kind of put together a picture that doesn't make sense within the corrupt picture they want us to believe exists. And just for fun, Ken Buck also, as we've been talking about, has been making fun of Marjorie Greene like this.
So George, when I was teaching law school, I learned and taught certain constitutional principles. When Marjorie Taylor Greene was teaching CrossFit, she learned a whole different set of values, evidently, because my idea of what this country should be like is based on the Constitution. And she sees the world differently.
And she does see the world differently. She does not prioritize the Constitution. And so many within the MAGA part of the Republican Party seem to fit into that same characterization. But despite all of what we just talked about, an impeachment inquiry likely is going to be launched if the committee follows Kevin McCarthy's lead. And to me, this is embarrassing for the Republican Party.